Today, join us on the horn right now, senior writer over at The Athletic, covering the Detroit Lions, our good friend, Nick Baumgardner. If you haven't bought the book, Michigan1997book.com. He's got another one in the works, I heard, or at least I'm pushing for it. Nick, how are you, my friend?
What's going on, Anthony? How are you?
No
current Michigan book in the works on this team yet. Let's not start any rumors that can't be stamped out, but I'm doing good otherwise.
I'm just trying to add more to your plate, Nick. That's all.
I know. Maybe someday we'll get there. Took 25 years for the last one. I don't think it'll take 25 years for this one. I'm just going to say it.
Well, that's good. Then we can all breathe easily then. Detroit Lions welcome in Matthew Stafford and the L.A. Rams. Kind of like a storybook game here. Sunday Night Football, 8 o'clock on NBC. When I look at this Lions team from a fan's perspective, it didn't matter to me who they played, right? Packers, Rams, roll them out there. It's a home playoff game. Ford Field was going to be electric. So for me, it didn't matter. Was there a team that you were looking at that you thought, it's probably a better matchup for us?
Well, I guess. I think the Green Bay, obviously, even though they played really well against Detroit on Thanksgiving, and I think they're playing really good football overall. Jordan Love is playing some solid ball, even though it's not always as consistent as you'd like, but it's usually good enough. And I really like their roster. But, them, I suppose. But I don't, I know that the Stafford thing is this, that is what it is. And obviously the Rams matchup is more difficult than you would like there. But I've got a sense that some people kind of have likened it to being impossible, which I don't really think is fair. Stafford is playing really good football, but at the same time, if you flip the thing around, this is an offense that can score with just about anybody you play, and the Rams still have issues with all the things the Lions do well. So, I was okay with it at the end of the day. I understood why people weren't. But beyond that, the biggest thing I guess I was interested in seeing, and so far it seems like it's been fine. I guess we'll see on Sunday is how Jared Goff, how he handles this. Not so much Matthew Stafford, but how Jared Goff handles it, because obviously you're looking at a situation where he's playing his former team, but it's more than that. I mean, he's playing a coach who gave up on him completely and totally. Sean McVay did not draft Jared Goff. He inherited him, deemed him good enough, and then deemed him not good enough like overnight. And I know that, he says all the right things, but there's no way that that's not something that is burning pretty deep there. So very curious to see how Jared plays. If he's under control and calm, Jared, then it's going to be just fine because he'll be lights out. But if he's too hyped up, that would be my concern.
I am very interested in this as well because, and he talked about, the chip will always be there on his shoulder after how things went down with the L.A. Rams. And if we get Jared that takes care of the football, I think we're going to be just fine. It's indoors, so we don't really have to, it's just another game at Ford Field, which I think really bodes well for him. But it does kind of feel like there's going to be some added pressure there for him with the weapons that may or may not be available. What do we know about Jameson Williams? What can you tell us about Sam Laporta and availability for Sunday?
We'll find that out later this week, I suppose. I don't know too much on that. I'm actually going to go out there today. I think they're going to keep a lot of that pretty close to the vest. Laporta thing did not look good, right? I mean, I don't know how much, even if he can play, what you're going to get out of him. So, that's one of those things where that was a bummer, right? I don't know what you can even ask, with that one. I think he was out there yesterday at walkthrough, but I don't know what that all means. I'm not sure what they ended up doing with Jameson, but at the same time, I think this is a game where if you can be out there at all, maybe you're out there, and if they can use Sam in little situations, not much, maybe they do that. The one thing I would look for would be, and this has been something they've been working on the last couple of weeks, is James Mitchell is going to get a much higher dose here, I think. And that, that would be the thing. Jameson, we'll see. That's something that it's always a little bit still touch and go with him, and I think you can replace him and be okay. But Sam is a very different situation. I think that Mitchell's played good football the last couple of weeks. He made a really good play. I think it was in this last game, nice catch over the middle. So, he's a guy I think that really needs to step up. They liked him a lot, have liked him a lot, and it's been a little inconsistent, but, there's a big opportunity here, possibly.
Yeah, massive for him. So let's say that Laporta can't go and JMO is limited at best. Right. Do the Lions And by the way, I love the idea where Sam Laporta faked like he fell over to catch that touchdown last week, like the fake slip and fall, like the call Sam, like that's a sponsorship deal waiting to happen. Call Sam, dude, acts like he falls over, then gets up and he's wide open.
Yeah.
Perfectly executed, well done there. Very creative by this staff. Likes to get a little crafty when it comes down to players and who's eligible and how they're going to do things. Right, they're crafty there. But if those guys are limited, how can the Lions offensively beat the LA Rams?
Yeah, I think they have to run the ball. I think that's the number one thing every single time you play with Detroit. I think, when we talk about Laporta that's going to be the big impact there because he's been such a big part of it. Jameson, I think he was full go or whatever practice, so we'll see how much he can or can't do. But at the end of the day, it's going to be about, can you line up, take care of Aaron Donald, run away from him, and, keep the chains moving. If you can do that and keep Stafford on the bench, this is exactly what you're trying to do here, right? I mean, like that you want to extend drives, long possessions. Like you said earlier, make sure that Goff is in a mindset where he's taking care of the ball. Like I would be really careful, frankly, if I were Ben Johnson. I would maybe even gauge the day, right? Like to see how he's feeling. But I wouldn't maybe give him a whole lot of like big shots early in that game. I would maybe let's run the ball, let's possess it, get down the field, get a score early, get a lead, and then play with the lead. Detroit is extremely difficult and hard to play against when they have a lead because they're so physical and they never stop running the ball even when they're trailing. And when they're up on you, it's a very different situation. I think as we've seen, they've got guys back defensively a little bit now. They're a little more confident there. So I think that's the big key there. Run the ball early. Don't do anything crazy early. Don't get yourself into any holes early and ride the wave offensively. Ride the wave defensively all you want, but like offensively, they need to be under control and do what they do and not get swept up in the whole thing and try to, have 5 kill shots in the first 7 plays or something like that.
Let's flip the script over to the other side, right? And, who knows what we'll be able to get out of potentially Aleem McNeil and where James Houston is at. We'll find out more later on.
Right.
But how in the world do you stop or at least try to contain, slow down Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, it's not easy, and I think that this is going to have to go back to the old, the best way to play Stafford when he's got weapons and when he doesn't have weapons, the best way to play him is to be in the deep shell and make him throw everything underneath. And when he gets mad about that and starts getting frustrated, you slip in some of those fire zones and try to keep him off platform as much as you can. But I think you've got to fight the urge if you're Aaron Glenn to do weird stuff or this is a shell game. Get back and make him throw the ball underneath and make them go the hard way all the way down the field. And then, this is the deal with teams like this. Puka and Kupp are awesome at any level of the field, right? Even in the red zone. But obviously, if you stretch the thing and you get all the way down there and you make him take 6, 7, 10, 15, whatever chunks, and you play tight defense in the red zone 3 out of 5 trips, you're going to win the game if you do what you're supposed to do on offense. So that's how I look at it defensively. They're going to give up yards. They're going to give up plays, but you can't give up a couple weeks ago in Dallas when, CeeDee Lamb hits the 80 whatever yarder. Like that cannot happen. Like those plays can't happen. And, I know that there's some guys on this team still that play with Stafford. There's not as many. But I think Tracy Walker probably needs to talk to some of those safeties and make sure they know that Stafford will throw the ball 70 yards if you let him. So, you got to get deep. And I think that's number one with Stafford. And I think that that's always been the book on him. But at the same time, he's been playing so well that he's throwing the ball into windows and doing things that nobody else can do right now. So you got to be on it and do your best with it. But one thing is you just can't give up the bombs. You can't give up big chunks. Or because you can't get them back, and that's the really difficult thing.
Just for comparative sake, if you want to kind of think about who Puka Nacua is, imagine that the LA Rams have their version of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
With the
they have 2 of them. Because Kupp, they have 2 of them. Cooper and Puka. That's the same guy. So they're both incredibly dangerous in every area of the field. Yeah, for sure. Great comment.
And Stafford's going to try to hit him. Right? I mean, those are his guys. He will force that football in there if necessary. Were you surprised, Nick, at any of the changes from a roster standpoint that this team had to make in order to make room for guys like Aleem McNeil, guys like James Houston, guys like C.J. Gardner-Johnson?
Yeah, Yeah, no, because these are the guys that were here at the beginning. These are their guys. These are the guys that were when the season started, when the whole thing began, and when the plan began. Really, these guys were supposed to be here and be involved. I know the Bugs one was a tough one. Urban, I thought played pretty well too, but those guys, especially Urban, were brought in to be stopgaps and to get you to here, and you're here now. So to me, if you think those guys can go and they can give you what you think they've got, then they're out there. Because I think that shows a couple things. Number one, with a guy like Houston, I think they think there's a future here with him, or they hope so anyway. Or obviously he's looked good enough in practice for that to be worth it. And that's the same with every guy, right? Health-wise, they're not going to play and they're not going to cut a guy unless the guy's going to go out there and play pretty heavy. Like CJ has been out there, quite a bit, or was out there, I should say. So yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do. It's playoff time. I think that you got to get your best 53 out there, and you got to get your best 11 the best you can, and that's how it goes. And it's a different world now for the Lions in a lot of areas, right? Like no more draft talk in January and a lot of different stuff that's happening. But this is just sort of, I think, what happens.
I really did like the last game against Minnesota there inside Ford Field. Although it was loud at times, it was kind of a weird feeling because we're not used to having a game that was quote unquote meaningless, right? Although there is no such thing, but you get what I'm saying. Like nothing at stake because typically we're out and, it's just like, all right, prepare for the draft. But this year,
it's whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Win or lose, we were still going to the playoffs. It was like a completely different feel. The one that I guess I wish would have worked out a little bit better was Isaiah Buggs. I don't know what, I don't have an attachment to him. But for whatever reason, like that felt like a family member getting cut.
It did. And that's the tough one. That's one that I know that, it's hard, but this is actually why I like this group, and I like Campbell and I like Brad Holmes a lot because that's a guy who I think that they have shown a lot of love to in the years that was here. And I know it's a bummer, but it is what it is. And when you have a competitive roster and you're trying to crank it up and you're trying to do what you got to do, you can't make decisions that are based on, it's the same kind of thing as Jamal Williams. It's the same exact thing really as Jamal. Like you love the guy, and in a perfect world, he would be there, but it's not a perfect world. And the NFL is really hard, and you can't, that's just how it has to be. And the fact that they don't make those decisions based on, he feels like a family member, and as hard as that is to say, and as cold as that sounds, like that's good. I think that that's what you're supposed to do. I go back to when Campbell, my goodness, like when they had to cut Muehlbach, I think it was on his birthday. And he felt horrible, right? Like, obviously, he's back with the team now and coaching all this. But I remember he felt so bad, but it was just like, well, you did it because it had to be done. Like, he had fallen off, and the next guy was ready, and, on we go. And it's just like that. Those are the things that in past regimes here, I wonder about. And those are the things that often keep you from getting to this place. And so those are hard moves to make, for sure, but they're also really necessary. And I think that that's also a sign of, they're in pretty good hands here.
It is a sign of growth, right? When you're willing and ready to make those really difficult decisions and get your emotions out of it, and just based upon what we see, that is a good sign for the organization. I like the fact that, Nick, you also just brought up that the organization basically in a much different place now where they have to make these decisions, right? And things are now a little bit more challenging because the roster is as competitive as it is. Who needs to have, give me like one guy that you're keying on offensively and defensively. And maybe it's as simple as, hey, the obvious guys, like it's got to be Hutch and Goff, but one guy on each side of the football that has to have a big game for this team in order for them to win on Sunday.
Melifonwu on defense comes right up. I mean, he has been playing so well, and he's been such a difference maker for them over these last couple of weeks because he's a guy that they have not had. He's a space defender who can play in the box. He can help in the run game. He can add to the blitz package stuff, and he's been terrific as a safety. I mean, he's been very good, and that needs to continue. And it's been one of these things where it's like, is that a flash, or is that something that we're going to just now, is that going to happen? Are you just going to be this guy? And if that's the case, then you're looking at a totally different situation, not only, defensively moving forward, but in a game like this against a quarterback who's going to air it out, and a game where you're going to play a lot of safety. So he comes up number one for me. On defense. Offensively, if I flipped it around, I think I would say Gibbs and Montgomery. I think that those are the two for me, and obviously beyond Goff, but so the two in the backfield, the whole run game, altogether. I mean, this is why they're here. I mean, the Lions are built to get to this point and then to take teams into the deep water with the run game and drown them. Like, that's what they're built to do. And they're healthy. They're here, the line, and, the backs are there. I don't know if they both ended up at 1,000 yards, but, like, that's all gone according to plan. And you're here now. So, like, they have to go be what we think and kind of know that they are, and they can't have a dud. Like, that's really the thing in this game. Like, the Lions win the game if they are who they are and play their football. That's how I look at this, because I think they're a better team than the Rams. But, if you're going to struggle or have, bad series here and there, or somebody holds or whatever it is, and you can't run the ball suddenly for some reason and goes away, then you're not going to have a good day, right? So, like, that's where it's at for me on offense. It's real simple. It's the best stuff that you're about has to be at its best from now until, the rest of the way here.
And you know what, for me personally, a sleeper pick here on offense is somebody like a Josh Reynolds, like 2 catches for 37 yards.
Sure.
Nothing crazy, just a couple of grabs in pivotal third downs to move the sticks. That's right. All right, final one here for you. Michigan beats Washington 34-13, wins their first national championship since 1997. I thought Michigan was going to hammer them even worse. What an end to the season, huh?
Wow, yes. I mean, that's a fantastic team. 15-0. It's very interesting. You brought up the book earlier, the 97 book, and I got to know so many of those guys, and Lloyd, of course. And we started writing that book we started reporting it, I should say, in 2021. And that was right when Michigan started to turn around things, right? Like right when the program started to pick itself up. And as we reported that story, I could see similarities with the bond and how they play for each other and how defensively they fly around and they mix it up and they're not afraid to take chances. And it really did remind me of the 97 team. And that's really the first time you can say that about a Michigan team, obviously, in 25 years. And for them to finish a job against, the best pass offense in college football, really, and shut that thing down. Super impressive, obviously. That they've been rock solid these last 3 years, and it's been a heck of a run for them. So cool to see that. That was well earned by a lot of guys who put in a ton of time.
It is very, very peculiar. Mountaintop comes out and Michigan wins the national championship. So in the words of Rod Beard, Nick Baumgardner, start writing. Let's keep the train rolling. Find him on Twitter at Nick Baumgardner. Read his words at The Athletic. Visit Michigan1997book.com to get your version of Mountaintop. Nick, as always, my friend, thank you so much for the time. We'll see you Sunday at Ford Field.
All right, Anthony. See you.